Well, today I've got some bearings. I had to think of what these are called. My brain's not operational. Got 4 bearings for my Bolens 1050 mower deck, 36-inch mower deck, and they're to fix this. These guys are wobbling, and when these guys wobble, it's getting a little rusty because I haven't. It's been out in the rain. When these guys wobble, the belt comes off and gets flipped all about. So I'm gonna put some of these new bearings in there and try and unplug this nipple, this grease nipple here, and hopefully get my mower deck working again. Maybe today. We shall see how far I get, but not sure the effort it's going to take. I haven't never taken one of these apart. I think there's just bolts. Yeah, bolts on there. And otherwise, I'm not sure how to get the bearings into it. But we will find out shortly. Well, the kicker is I only got 4 bearings, enough to replace 2 of them. And the guy said, "Aren't you going to get 6 of them, to replace all 3 pulleys?" And I said, "No, just do the worst of them." Now I see that's kind of stupid, because this is the worst one here. And the end ones are pretty much the same, although this one maybe these 2 are the worst. And maybe this one is kind of the best. So maybe I'll leave that one there, but really for a mower deck this old, I mean, I spent $60 anyways. I probably should have just got the 3rd set of bearings for it. Such is life. I'm gonna put the 2 in there and see what I can do with that, and we'll go from there. Alright, so I got one of these off after lots of troubling and trying, and it's got a lock pin on it, lock ring. So I need to pop that lock ring off, and then I should be able to get the bearings out, what's left of them. It doesn't look like there's a lot left of the bearing actually, so. Oh yeah, looks like there's a whole bunch of rope tangled up in there, so that'll make a mess. So I'll get to that in a little bit. So I got the pin off this guy using my proper channel lock tool. Real nice to have proper tools for the job, which I don't always have, but I had that one. So now I just gotta get the bearing out. There's some seriously wrecked stuff in here. I don't know if these are spacers or what. But boy, these are mangled. And I see, if I can get it out here, that is a half ball bearing. Half of it shaved off, you probably can't see it. And it'll probably be blurry if I bring it close, but that is half a ball bearing. Busted right off that guy. There we go. Got that guy out. So these bearings are really old and completely mangled. Big chunky ball bearings in there. Seal's all busted. Those are completely garbage. There's the pulley. Haven't got this last bearing up, but this is the worst of them. I think I am going to need to order another set of bearings to do this properly. This is life. I'll get that one off, and lost my handy half-inch hammer thing that I used to push the spline of the pulley through. So we'll put that on fast forward, and you can see me hopefully finish this one off. Alright, it is another day. I think it's a month or a half since I did the last video in this series anyways, as I'm fixing the deck. Got a new set of bearings that are the right size for my mower deck. So I got the first one in. It spins real nice. I'm going to patch it back up, put it together, and then I'm going to get to work on the next one and see if I can finally finish this project. So not much to say. I'm just going to put them in and get to it. Okay, I got it in with some hammering. I think I did a little bit of damage to the top of it trying to get it out the first time, and I maybe bumped the edges a bit and made it a bit wider. I probably should have ground it down a little bit. The metal probably spread out a little bit over the edges, so it was a little trouble getting the bearing on the first time there. Hopefully the next few go a little bit easier than that. Yeah, I think this is the most damaged of them, we'll see. But finally on, so I'm going to put the other pieces on. And got a bit of a shine there. Got to put the other pieces on, the blade and the cup there. And we'll hopefully get through this. Now these are sealed bearings basically, so I don't think there's any expectation to actually grease them, although I do have grease nipples on this deck. I'm going to put a little bit extra grease on top, just because there's a little cap that keeps the grease in. And I'll grease this up at least to start with, so at least for a while there'll be grease in there, and you know, you can't usually have too much grease on something, so I'll just keep everything nice and loose, and it'll keep some of the moisture off, hopefully as well, and hopefully just extend the life just a little bit anyways. my first one on. Excellent. Now let's try and get the next two here and see how easy they are. And then I'll do my final, but I'll put it together, see if I can bring me down for the final show here, as long as it doesn't fall over. We'll see. Got my end cap, put some grease on the inside of there just for good measure, that keeps the dust out. And then this guy actually has a key on it, which I didn't show you before, and so I actually had to file out the key channel because this is not very far down, because it was all hammered together. I was hammering it. So when we get to this, I'm gonna have to move the camera. So wait for a second. This final bolt on, there's a little bit of grease in there already, so that'll go on and be greased. And this last blade on, it's getting dark out, so I'm not going to be able to get to this. Kind of turned around, I hope you can see it. Grease everywhere. It's dark out, so I'm not going to get to trying this and making sure it works, but if it's not the bearings, well, I'll have to get a new belt. I haven't got a new belt yet. That'll cost money. But this was the first major thing, because the bearings were pretty bad. Now when you tighten this bolt here, it really pulls it together. It really pinches it up nicely, all the bearings together. Because you can feel it. You can feel it kind of nudging. It gets tight for a second, and then you can keep turning it, tightening it for a little while. You can kind of feel it pulling up. It's just that amount of tension where you can feel it pulling together nicely. So that was it. That was a project and a half. I must have been 4 hours of this thing. I don't even know what time it is now. The lights are the only thing I got in my shed right now. Hope you can see there's a bunch of dust on the screen there. So that was my Bolens 1050 deck bearing replacement. It was a madhouse. So I'll just quickly go over what I needed to do here. Take this bolt off, and then the blade pops off, and then you can just take this under piece off, which has got a little key in it, to the spline, and then the pulley just kind of pulls out the bottom. That assumes you can get your bearings off. And I obviously had a lot of trouble with the bearings. You know, just they weren't rusty, but you know, they were well seated there. They've been on there for 30 years. This is a 30-year-old tractor. I think it was 78. 36, 37 years old anyways. Those bearings were probably the original bearings. So after 30 years, that's not bad. You know, maybe somewhere replaced it, but they were kind of the old style. They were not sealed at all, so I got nice new sealed ones on there. I will need to replace the grease nipples on the top of these guys because I was using them for hammering a bit, and yeah, these guys here. I was using these for hammering. This one I have to screw back in. But because these are sealed, I'm just noticing this pulled above. I might have to loosen this one because I didn't have a cap on it. I wonder if That's interesting. The original bolt I don't think is on there. Maybe that's what this was for, this ring. Okay, well anyways. I don't think that's the original part, but anyways. Maybe it is. I'm going to put that back on because it looks like the pulley was pulling past the spline or the shaft, whatever you want to call it. So, anyways, you don't actually have to take the grease nipples off for most of it. But I was banging against mine, mashed this one good. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off and buy a couple replacement ones for that. That shouldn't be too bad. But they're sealed anyways, so in theory, nothing's rotating them in there that's touching the metal. It's all in the sealed bearing, so the sealed bearing should last on its own. I put extra grease in there to maybe, you know, help transfer the heat or whatever, but because it's a sealed bearing, I guess I shouldn't have to do anything with it. So that's your Bolens 1050. What is this? 42-inch deck, I believe it is. 42-inch deck on the Bolens. And 6 bearings on this guy that I replaced. I didn't replace the bearings in these. You know, I don't know. I guess they're fine for now. Just the main pulleys. And this belt is really mashed up. I really need a new belt. But I don't know. I'm going to try it without. I've not mowed my lawn in a month and a half or something. Because I've been waiting on these parts. And the first time around I got the wrong size bearings. That was an absolute pain in the neck. So I'm going to put that last grease nipple on there, get that tightened up, and like I say, I probably won't need to grease them because of the new sealed bearings, but I'll probably get new grease nipples anyways. We'll see how it goes, and I'll get that on. And, I will need to refill this. There was oil coming out of here because there's kind of a air release there for the gear assembly. I'll have to fill that up back up with some oil. I just use standard, you know, 10W30, whatever I have left over on my shelf from the cars. And put that in there. You know, it's probably best to drain it once a year and fill it back up. And just, I don't think it has to be anything special for oil in there. Just make sure there's oil in there. That's the only thing. And I think that's it. So I'll get it on here. I'll probably give you an update, but that might be another video. But that was replacing the bearings in the Bolens 1050 42-inch mower deck. 40-year-old bearings that were well past their prime. Brand new sealed bearings from sambolens.net, I believe. You can Google that. So that's it, and thanks for watching.
Hey all, I wanted to do a quick update of this. I didn't get any video of actually mowing the lawn, but yes, it did end up working. The problem was indeed that the pulleys were loose, and it was just wobbling when it got under load cutting, you know, heavy grass, and I have a lot of heavy grass to cut. So when it was under load, it got, you know, the belt started wobbling and then took right off. So that was the total fix to the deck. So far I've had no issues. I did a test run, you know, a couple of minutes of cutting, and that fixed it. Now the next step is probably to get a proper belt. The belt is pretty chewed up and old, but I'll probably end up running it honestly until it breaks. But that is a fix, and that will fix your mower deck if you're having troubles with the belt falling off. The pulleys are nice and tight now, maybe a little bit too tight, but I'm hoping they'll loosen up. I got the deck kind of warm, the bearing is nice and warm, so that everything seats and everything. So I'm hoping it loosens up, and I'll check it again before I get going. I might have to loosen it, but we'll see. But anyways, that was a successful project, and I got the bearings from sambolens.net. So if you need any Bolens stuff, you can get it from him, and it worked good. I did have to do some filing on the pulley bars or splines or whatever you call them, because the end of it expanded from the hammering, but that's okay. I filed it down a little bit and did a bit of grinding, and it works. It's just as, you know, it's good. It'll last another 20 years, I'm sure. So that was it. Let's sum up the project, and it worked out well.